Welcome to NICTITATING Presents, an interview series with genre authors. My guest again is Paula Ashe. How you doing?
I'm pretty good. How you doing, Sean?
Not bad. You'll have to excuse my stomach rumbling. Pretty good, yeah. I did some extras work yesterday on a show called Roswell. So
Wow.
yeah, so that's money, which is nice.
Yeah, money is nice. Money is nice.
How are
Money is
you
nice.
doing?
I'm doing pretty good. I'm a little harried today, so just kind of forgive me if my responses are all over the place.
That's fine.
It's a busy work day, so but yeah, I mean, I'm good. I'm excited about our chat. Even though you're going to fairly harass me about my novella in progress, which, it's fine. You have every right to do so. It's
No,
fine.
I mean, listeners, I joked off air that this was just going to be an hour of me complaining that the novella isn't done yet, but that's not what this will be, because that's kind of unprofessional. Also, because I don't think I'd be able to remember it once I go in. I just go full ADD. So
Yeah, big same. Big
um,
same.
so yeah, we've been compiling a collection of yours over the past, I'd say 6 months.
Yeah. I think that's about right.
And we left off on the title is "We Are Here to Hurt Each Other," stories.
Yes.
It's a joke that I'm going to need more therapy. It's a great collection, very disturbing.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, I mean, it's good though.
Yeah.
There's a lot of like family trauma, but then like a bloody angel shows up type of stuff.
I mean, that's par for the course with me. I think as far as the collection goes and the stories that we've selected, um I mean, the title comes from one of the stories. I think it's from All the Hellish Cruelties of Heaven, I believe.
I
And
think so.
it just kind of struck me as an appropriate description of the underlying philosophy of every story.
Right, because at
Um,
first I think we were trying for like some sort of like mother-ish title.
Something like, yeah, it was something about like, there was there was something about some kind of motherish title because we wanted to tie in the mother of all monsters, I think.
Yeah, and there
And
are
there was
definitely a
something,
few stories that are about mothers.
and there's a lot of like, like clearly I have mommy issues, and which is bizarre because my mother is lovely. But uh I think I one of the reasons why I write what I write and how I write is because it's the way, like for a lot of people, it's how I work out some of my anxieties. And I think that becoming a parent is, it's one of those things where, you just like, my kid is lovely, and
Yeah.
I'm biased, but he is. Um, but I think it's a very anxiety ridden experience. Not just the whole like process, but like, bringing somebody new into the world and having an idea of what the world is like is just it makes you nervous.
Yeah, I can
So
understand that. I mean, admittedly, I don't have kids and I probably never will, but like I can understand like logically how suddenly you are like not only have to take care of a living being, but you have to be like, this is the world. And then you're starting to go, well, is that the world though? Like, that's
right.
my view of the world.
Yeah. And that's like, yeah, that's a big part of like, I don't have the most optimistic perspective, but I don't want to pass that on
Right.
to
You
my
don't want to go
kid,
to like
because
a
that's not
5-year old, like, the world is terrible. That's
right.
not a great game plan.
It's not a great, like, the world is full of pain and suffering. I know you're four, but like eat your Cheerios, and I'm gonna tell you
You
all
should
about
just accept
agony.
this
Like, it's just
now.
not. Right, just
Yeah.
like just accept it now before you get heartbroken by it later. But yeah, so it's trying to deal with that anxiety of just like the world as it is, but not limiting that perspective to just my own kind of understanding. So, but yeah, so initially it was something about mothers because that's a big theme, and a lot of the stories
Yeah.
is about parenting and children and responsibility and those sorts of things. But then there was another title that we had that was much longer and kind of um, by my description, I would say kind of pretentious, but I still liked it.
Yeah.
But I think the title that we finally decided on, I think it works.
I think it's the best one. Yeah. I mean, I get
Yeah,
pretty neurotic about titles. I'm currently deciding on a title for Tiffany Morris's poetry collection with her, and that could take months because I'll just be like
sure.
this, and she's like, eh, and then she'll be like this, and I'm like, meh,
Yeah,
and it's just that for a month.
right, exactly. Absolutely.
And then I get a new one too that I don't want to pretend. I don't want to sound too paranoid, but I've definitely like publicly announced titles and then noticed books that have similar kind of titles and been like, I see you.
Yeah, yeah. Like, oh.
I won't say specifics, but I definitely had a subtitle, like one of those and other.
Oh, yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
someone also used that. And I was sort of like, well, it's common, but it's also like, but I think I did tell him it, or at least I either shopped it to his press or I publicly said it. You never know, though. You can't prove that shit.
Sure. It's like bad art friend with titles, like
Right, yeah.
like, but it's like writers we talk to each other, we talk about our ideas, so it's kind of difficult to know like what is just sort of fair game inspiration and like when is it like, oh wait, I was gonna use that, but I don't think in this case that it was.
No, I don't. I mean, if someone literally
Yeah.
has the title "We Are Here to Hurt Each Other," that's going to be a little
Right.
suspect. But I don't think in the next 3 months that's going to happen. And if it does, then we deal with it.
Yeah, we'll figure something out. It's fine. We're adaptable people. So.
But I meant to say, this is why now when I do the Indiegogos and like announce books, half the time it's not even a real working title. I just do the thing.
I think that's smart though.
Yeah.
Because we have, there's so much. Like it was a few weeks ago, somebody emailed me and was like, or messaged me through Facebook and was like, somebody has been looking for this title of a collection that you have out, and I was like, what? I don't have a collection out yet. And it was something I had been planning to do like 10 years ago, and I put it on my website, and then I just never did it.
Oh, and they just took the title?
And they just took the title, and I was like, oh my God. So
it happens,
if you're gonna announce that you have some stuff together, you should probably actually have it together. That's
Well, you know what it was about the specific title too was, however, I think he read the collection that hasn't found a home yet and probably won't. But one of the stories in it has really specific language as well, and then part of the title was also that. So I was like, okay, so it's like you're literally using like a phrase practically from this story, and then the subtitle is the same as the title of the book. A little suspect, but who knows?
A little suspect. It's a little sus, but yeah.
But anyway, yes, I'm excited to put out Paula's book. I mean,
yay!
Because
bless your heart.
I'm just excited I have been excited to do it. It's nice to put out other people's books. I'll say that. Like, I feel like we have a real press now. Because, like, for whatever reason, it was just like, me. And then me. And I know if I was somebody else looking at the press, I'd be like, this is a vanity thing. Like,
yeah. I mean, we talked about that a lot, too. And how, it's like, I know for me, certainly when you invited me, like that was such a big deal.
I like to surprise people.
Yeah.
I intentionally.
Yeah, it was very much surprise.
I don't want to announce because I'm not sure. You never know, like if it works out. But there was a woman yesterday where I was like, "Oh yeah, this and this and this. Hey, do you also want to do a book?" And she was like, wait, what? I was like, yup.
Yeah,
Um,
like
I like to sneak it in there so they're like, oh
you
my
do,
God.
you do,
Um,
you do.
but yeah, no, I don't know. I like the process of like, I sort of like taking somebody that like is sort of well known, and then like trying to like boost the signal with a book that way, as opposed to somebody who's like extremely well known. I mean, also
Sure.
extremely well known people won't work with me yet, but also I sort of
Getting
don't.
there.
You know, it's like I don't know. If you want one of the bigger names, like some other press is gonna do that.
Sure. Well, I think it's also, it's giving people an opportunity because particularly like in the small press, small medium press realm, like where like things kind of like start off,
Yeah,
it's like maybe the same 5 or 10 presses that
yeah,
are pretty well known.
yeah,
And they generally, and I don't mean this in any kind of like disrespectful way, but like they tend to publish the same people because they're all reading the same people. So it's nice to have a place that's like focused on bringing attention or boosting the single signal, like you said,
yeah.
to people who are just kind of like known, but just don't have a collection yet for whatever reason. And this kind of boosts like their presence.
Yeah,
So,
no, I know how. I mean, I just remember I really liked like when Dim Shores first came on the scene and like Dunham's Manor
hmm
Press, where it seemed like I was
yeah,
like, oh, this is a new person they're introducing me to with this book or this book.
yeah,
And I just feel like for whatever reason in the last couple of years, whether that's economic reasons or what, it seems like we don't get that as much anymore.
yeah,
And that
yeah.
wasn't that long ago. That was like 2014.
No,
So like that
yeah,
was
no,
maybe half a decade ago.
yeah, yeah. It's not like something that happened like a full 10 years or more ago. Like that was
Like I'm
pretty.
seeing more than one press like re-releasing books, which is fine.
Sure.
But personally, I'm like, do we need yet another? I mean, whatever. You know, I don't
Yeah,
want to go in that to that because it's like,
yeah,
okay, if they usually have different stuff, so I understand why they do it. But
sure.
at the same time, me as a press runner, I'm like, I would never do that.
Yeah,
Although if it's
yeah.
my own book, I would re-release it. So I guess that's being hypocritical. Because I am planning to re-release Demon in like a hardcover whenever I finish book 2 of the Fire's Rise series, through NICTITATING. Mostly because I'm a stubborn piece of shit, and I don't want anybody being like, yeah, let's not do this in book 2, and I'll be like, fuck you.
Right. You can do what you want.
Right. I
That's the
like to
beauty
get
of it.
most
Yeah.
of it written, so by the time I get an agent or I go bigger, and they tell me you can't do this, this, and this, and I literally can't.
Right.
I can be like, well, at least I got my series done.
Right. Yeah. You got it out the way you wanted it. So, yeah. And I also have to say, like, just given the subject matter of we are here to hurt each other, I think
I'll be
not.
honest, I don't know that many other
Yeah.
presses that
Like,
be
you know
putting
what
it
I'm about to
out,
say.
because like I know like maybe 2 that would think about it, but the thing is, there would be probably like major editorial stuff.
Yeah.
Like
There would be a lot of stuff that would
it
have to
would
be
be,
toned
and I
down.
don't even know if it would be violence wise. I think it would be more like thematically, and like
Yeah.
they'd be like, we just can't have so many things, and I just am like, this is horrifying, but I'm putting this out.
Bless you. Yeah. I mean, it's a heavy book. And I know,
It's not a light
um,
beach read, no, unless that
this is
beach is
not,
like,
yeah.
like in some polluted part of Russia.
Sure. Like if it's like some sort of like when the sea, like the whole like apocalyptic, the seas are filled with blood, like that. Like it's a beach read for that,
Yeah.
but just general like light reading. I mean, if the title doesn't tell you, I will tell you right now, this is not a light
Oh,
read.
I'm gonna have like the content warning on this thing is gonna be
It's going to
like
be
2
very
pages.
lengthy. I was thinking the other day that like maybe I don't know, like to get like some kind of like legend, like a map legend, like like a skull. Like this story contains like murder, and there'll just be like for every story there's a skull, and then like with the various like with each sort of transgressive act, there's a
I'd
different
rather just
icon
do
for
all
it.
purpose
Yeah,
because I think that would get a
yeah.
little. Because if you got one that's
I
got
mean,
5 things on it,
right.
I don't know.
I was just thinking about it in terms of like this would be ridiculous, but yeah, I think an all-purpose content warning is definitely going to be
I'll be honest. I
required.
also just don't think I have the resources to get that formatted.
Sure, that's we'll do that on the re-release.
So I'm
In
very
the
excited for your
very far
novella,
future. Yeah.
which is sorry. That's not even a joke. That's just my throat was dry.
No, that's okay.
But I've been eagerly anticipating it. Well, do you want to say like a rough synopsis of the plot?
Yeah, I can do that.
Okay.
I'm gonna try. So I'm gonna try and give a rough synopsis of the plot without A, spoiling anything, or B, self-censoring, because I do that a lot. It is the story of a police detective in a town called Markham. It's in New England, and she's investigating a series of ritualistic child murders. And there are some supernatural elements, or what seem to be supernatural elements involved. And the novella is about sort of why this is happening, and sort of I guess it's kind of an exploration of um, generational trauma, sort of the trauma that's kind of embodied in various landscapes. I just kind of as an aside, I've visited New England pretty frequently. My wife and I got married there, and
All right.
so yeah, and so I really love I love the like New England and the coast and everything, but it's also, I mean, obviously in like horror fiction, it's a pretty sort of I'm looking for. It's a very significant kind of landscape, and
Yeah.
it's exploring that. And I guess I could just kind of say it was in a sort of indirect way. It was inspired a lot by Matthew Bartlett's Leads, because I was reading a lot of I was reading Gateways to Abomination
Yeah. Yeah.
and what's the one
Creeping
about
Waves.
Creeping Waves?
Yeah.
Yeah, I was reading Creeping Waves, and I was just really struck by the way that he made just such a sinister place. So it's not the same. So, don't go into it kind of expecting the same sort of thing, but it
Right.
is in that same kind of vibe. Like I just wanted to create a place that was, for lack of a better term, I wanted just to create a place that was poisoned, and I wanted to kind of explore what that would look like and what that would do to people, because that's what I do.
Yeah, I mean, I always
Everywhere.
appreciate that because so much stuff that's set in New England, uh, they sort of go into like the lovely fall colors and the like hot cider and the sweater weather,
Yeah,
or
yeah,
Cape Cod and the beach and the ocean and seafood. But they don't get
yeah.
into like the kind of dark underbelly that I grew up in Massachusetts for I mean, I only moved to Santa Fe when I was 35. So yeah, let's say 35
Yeah.
years in Massachusetts. And there's some shit.
Yeah, yeah. I
There's a
mean,
lot of
there's some.
heroin addiction because we're a coast kind of state.
Yeah, yeah.
And
So there's a lot
opioids
of.
as well, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of opioids addiction. There's a lot of addiction. There's a lot of I mean, this is kind of true anywhere, but particularly in the coastal areas, various addiction issues, and then just the colonial past is a big part of that, and the being on the coast again, the enslavement trade, and so uh the human trafficking,
Yeah.
the swampy kind of areas, or marshes, I guess would be
Yeah.
more
Yeah.
appropriate. There's a lot of secrets in those places, and so I think it's a really kind of no pun intended, it's really fertile ground to explore a lot of kind of the dark, you said, the dark underbelly of New England. Like, it's a beautiful place, it's wonderful, it has great food, it's very accepting and sort of like in some ways socially progressive, but there's also a lot of there's a lot of shit, if I can
Yeah,
say
yeah,
that.
no.
There's
I
just,
mean, there's a
like,
lot of
there's
like
just,
I lived around Boston for 10 years, and it's one of if not the most racially segregated city in America.
yeah,
Which is
and that's a
funny because
big,
if you talk to people in Massachusetts, yeah, they're like, "Oh, we're very progressive and liberal." But it's like, but Boston, it's literally like, this is the white side, this is the black side. So that's
right.
not so progressive.
Yeah, it's I mean, and it's one of those things where, like, for me, I'm from the Midwest, and so I always saw New England and any kind of coastal region as like automatically being more progressive. But then,
Right.
like, when you look at it more closely, it's like, yeah, in some ways it's more progressive in comparison to some places in the Midwest or in the South, but it's like it's really not. I mean, it's mostly like a good PR campaign
Yeah,
in
honestly, that's
in
what it
some
is.
ways.
It's
Yeah.
like I've talked with people about this. It's not that New England isn't also very racist. It's just buttoned up racism. So it's like
Yes.
somebody won't be like screaming from their porch. It'll be
Yeah.
more like they invite you to dinner and then like very kind of like quietly will be like, "Well, you see the family that moved in next door?" And you're
Right.
kind of like,
Yes. Yeah.
what?" Like,
Yeah. Yeah. It's the very, it's the
but
very
it's
kind
like
of
plausible
microaggression.
deniability too. Like, "Oh yeah, they just look very nice."
Right. Like, that's all I meant. Yeah. It's a very, and so, yeah, it's just, it's known, but it's hidden in a way. And so I just think that makes it really interesting to kind of explore like those sorts of dynamics. And then in particular for this particular the novella, the title is Telesignatures from a Future Corpse. Another element of it that I'm particularly interested in is just like the history of like communication and phone systems, and because I'm a nerd,
Oh, yeah, who
and
hasn't?
those kinds of like what we live in sort of the we live in the digital age that was initially called the information age, and how has that made things better, how has that made things worse, how does that interact with the histories that are already in a place like that. So
Nice, yeah. Yeah, I'm excited to read it.
yeah,
Um,
I you will read the whole thing soon, I promise.
okay. I don't, listeners, I don't know. I don't mean to be a jerk,
I've
but
been
I've been
no, you
trying to
don't.
think of every possible way
No, you
to.
it's so part of the issue, and I'll so yeah, so part of the issue is one time, like
No, I know you're
I'm
very busy.
very busy. But also with this story in particular, it's really it's been really tough to write, which I think is a good thing.
It can
Eventually
be
it'll
a
be a
good
good
thing.
thing
Yeah, I
once
mean, yeah.
once it's finished. But in
The
the
process can,
process
yeah.
is daunting. There's yeah, there's some stuff happening with time, and I I just want everybody to know, Sean did not ask me to make this plug, but I'm going to anyway. I was just really impressed when I read Astrum, and the way that time happened in that book, and or in that novella, I should say. And I just thought that was such a masterclass in how to write time, because that's one thing I've always struggled with as a writer, is how do you write about the passage of time without giving every detail, or alternately making it super boring. Like, how do you
Right.
like how do you do that in such a way that's effective for the reader, but it also like makes sense. um and so that's one of the things that I've been struggling with a lot
I
with
mean,
this
I will say,
particular
like,
story.
learning a lot of that was just, I started screenwriting, so my default is and
Yeah.
usually still is, or started and usually is still is real time. So it's just like
Mhm.
everything happens like moment to moment. But I noticed I started selling stories when I sort of like chopping and screwing it and like making it, elongated. So like blind
Yeah.
opera, I sort of like wrote it and there was a number of days, but then I sort of fucked with the timeline and I was like, this
Mhm.
is a really cool effect. And all I had to do was literally like copy paste day 3 into day 1 and like,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
it's not a straight line. It's more just like, hopping back and forth and like crossing and, um, but yeah, no, I mean, I just thought like, well, I had the idea in mind from the beginning, and it made it a lot easier because I was just like, oh, this is what happens. So like,
Yeah.
but yes,
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah.
Checks in
Yeah.
the
No,
mail.
it's just yeah. No, I think that story is phenomenal, and so I really so that's a lot of what this novella kind of does as well. Is there's some slippages of time and things with like um repetition and cycles, and so like laying all of that out as the foundation and then going back and like I like the phrase you use of like chopping it and screwing it. You have to first kind of get the linear part down and
Yeah,
then you can
yeah,
go back and mess with it. And
yeah.
so,
That is the hardest part. Is
yeah.
it's like what I like about real time. Why I'm usually, especially with novels and longer things, why I'm usually doing real time is like it's easier to wrap your head around and like
Hmm.
it's what people are used to because most movies are real time and like let's
Yes.
be real, most people watch movies and watch shows, they don't read as much.
Sure.
But yeah, I just like, you know like realizing the time is like something you can absolutely, I would say the strength of prose is like probably more than any other medium you can really mess with time in prose.
Hmm.
Because if you
Yeah.
do it in a show too much or a movie, people get sort of pissed off.
Yes. Because the visual depiction of time, the passage of time is fine, but the I don't even know how I'm trying to say it. Like it gets confusing. It gets really unless there's some clear indicator, that time
Yeah,
has passed but something
it
hasn't
can get
happened yet. It
confusing.
gets yeah, it
That's
can get
another struggle
confusing.
with like time related things, even in prose, is like doing it in a way that people can understand what is happening, but still being mysterious enough that they're like, what is
Yeah.
happening? Because if you do it too vague, then people are just like, I have no idea what's happening.
Right. Right. Like if you try to bury it too much, and I tend to surprisingly enough, despite some of the more extreme elements in my fiction, I tend to bury a lot of stuff, and uh, but with the you know messing around with time, that's something you can't be. You don't want to be too obvious, but you also don't want to be too subtle about it because, like you said, like people will just be like, "Wait, what? This story doesn't make any sense," and so it's striking that balance is
Yeah, well,
can be
in
tricky.
general, I'm very, very excited to get the novella. I'm assuming it'll probably be the last story because I don't think it makes sense to
Yeah.
make it anywhere else. And I mean, even without the novella, it's a hell of a book. It's like definitely very. I mean, it's like the horror fiction I appreciate, where it actually hurts you to read it. And I
Yeah.
think we as genre fans, particularly as horror fans, we've gotten
Mm.
a little complacent and like, so often I think of like, it's like, oh, it's a horror movie, but it's like feel good. It's basically like there's a monster, but we beat the monster and
Yeah.
everything's fine. And it's like
Everything's fine.
that's not that's not like scary. That doesn't disturb you. That's just sort of like the same story over and over.
Yeah, and like and there's absolutely like there's a place for that, and I appreciate those stories because I think we all need a reminder sometimes that that good can triumph over evil. Like that's there's a time and a place for that. But I think as far as what I'm actually like what really draws and compels me in as far as my own work goes is I'm interested in like I really love a horror story that just I don't want to say it doesn't have an end, but it doesn't have like a and the monster died and everybody was
Yeah,
happy
like a
again
clear
because that's not
resolution.
yeah like I don't like vague endings per se, but I also I where it's tied up with a neat bow and everybody's fine. Like again, writing stories like that is fine. I'm not saying that it's bad, but
Right, right. It's
for
just more
me
like,
as a writer, that's just not the kind of stories I tell.
yeah, it's nice to be able to write just like what you write. Like I think
Yeah.
somebody recently was telling me, I was talking about the same sort of thing, and they're like, yeah, but real life is like they find Brian Laundrie's bones.
Right,
Like
right.
it's not like they capture him and then he goes to trial and there's justice.
And
It's
he's,
like they
yeah,
find a bunch of bones and that's your resolution.
in the swamp, and that's it. That's about it. Yeah. Yes, exactly. Like,
I mean, I'm
yeah,
not. I'm
sometimes,
also not saying that's all of life though, because that's also like
sure.
kind of skewing negative. But yeah, it's okay
Right.
to do
Yes.
that in
Yeah.
art sometimes.
And yeah, and to be clear, like as the title suggests, the book does kind of skew negative,
It does. I mean,
but
that's why
but
the
again, I
next
mean
one's
that's
going to be
the
called "We Are Here to Love Each Other,"
right there.
and it's going to
That's
be like pastels and a lot of stuff about like modern homes.
we're here to love. That is so not within my wheelhouse. It's so like I used to joke when I was younger and I first kind of started writing, and I would share my work with people, and they'd be like, could you just write a story with a happy ending? And I'm like, I've tried. I have actually sat down and tried to write a story where like there's no trauma, or nothing is disturbed, and it just does not work. I can't do
I
it.
can do it, but it has to be after like multiple suicide attempts and like. So it's like a
Yeah.
happy ending with caveats of like,
Yes.
but they're still traumatized and suicidal.
Right. I'm trying the thing. There's a couple of pieces that I have in mind after this collection, and it will probably be the closest to uh, a happy ending, or at least a not entirely demoralizing ending, as I can come up with. But it's still like the people, or the characters, are gonna have to go through hell to get there. So
Well, I look
yeah,
forward to it. I think the world needs more Paula Ashe work, so
bless you.
that's my new
Appreciate
thing,
that.
dude. When like if someone asks me like I'm putting together an anthology, I'm like Paula, but obviously no one listens to me. So
Sure, sure, but at least you try. I
I'm
appreciate that.
trying, I am. I won't say which books, but
And I
someone
have
asked me and I said Paula and they didn't put you in. I was like, okay, bitch.
see see
Um
you
I
tried.
did
That's right.
try. But yeah, so we're getting close to when you have to go, I think.
Yeah, we have like 5 minutes.
5 minutes, yeah. So
So
I guess in general, we are here to hurt each other. I'm thinking probably a February release, listeners.
yes,
Um,
yeah.
and we just released Maxwell Bauman's House of Blood and Teeth. It's currently on sale for 99 cents for the ebook, and I think it's $6.99
Mm-hmm.
for the physical. So that'll be now until Halloween. I believe today is the 22nd or so. So this should be up by the 23rd or 4th. So you'll still get about a week to get that at the sale price. Also,
Mm-hmm.
Screaming Creatures is on sale for 99 cents, and the
Ooh.
Screaming Creatures is $6.99, and I think Bauman's book is $9.99 and
Okay.
99 cents. Yes, but so those are both on sale. And Astrum's 99 cents. I can't put it any lower. But yeah, so thanks for coming back on, Paula, and
Absolutely.
yeah, everybody stay
Thank you
tuned. I'm going
for
to try to line up some more interviews for this. But yeah, thanks for coming on.
absolutely thank you so much for having me. And yeah, February. We are here to hurt each other. We'll be out, and line up your wellness plans, and all that stuff now in preparation. I shouldn't make a joke about that, but I just did. Whatever.
It's fine.
It's fine.
It's fine.